Hello everyone and welcome to Education Plus. Today we are going to start studying a subject in B.Ed course which is learning and teaching. So first we'll be studying the learning part of this subject, after which we'll be moving on to study the teaching part of this subject. Also, few important things that I would like to tell is that the uploads now onwards, which will be covering this particular subject, will be of short duration, okay, which means my videos will be of 5 to 10 minutes each. I can make a single video that will cover the entire subject, but that video will be very long and I may miss out on several topics. So that way I thought it will be better if I make short videos of 5 to 10 minutes which will be covering specific subtopics in this subject, okay? Also, later when students come back to revise the subject, it will be easier for them to go to the playlist section of my channel, and from there they can choose specific topic that they want to study or revise. So let's get started with a video on understanding what is learning first of all. Now, here we have learning is not something that takes place within the boundaries of a classroom. Rather, it takes place anywhere, anytime, and from anyone. Now, when we hear the word learning, what comes to our mind is what happens inside a classroom. But that is just an example or a small part of learning. Learning overall is a much bigger process, okay? Learning is actually, it's a process in which we acquire new understanding. We develop new knowledge, okay? We develop new skills, values, behaviors, okay, preferences, etc. So that overall becomes learning. Now to understand them, let's have a look at some definitions. Now if they ask us to define learning in simple terms, we can write this definition. Learning is defined as a process of behavior modification through experiences, exercise, and efforts. So this becomes our definition, and we have basic explanation of learning here. Now, we have definitions of learning given by various psychologists, educationists, okay? So sometimes we may have to write definitions given by specific psychologists or educationists, okay? So that also helps us to define learning better. So first, definition by Herlock in 1942. Now, these are all the names of psychologists and educationists. They are all nouns, so if I make any mistake in pronouncing their name, then my apologies for that. Pronunciation of these names are not important, rather understanding concepts are important. So his definition of learning was, learning is development that comes from exercise and effort. Through learning, children acquire competence in using their hereditary resources. So this was his definition. Likewise, we have definition by Hilgard, Atkinson and Atkinson in 1979, which is, learning may be defined as a relatively permanent change in behavior that occurs as the result of prior experience. So this was definition given by them. Also here I would like to tell that whatever we memorize in school, okay, or whatever we mug up, those are not what comes under learning. Learning is something that lasts within us or lasts along with us, okay? So those short-term memorizing, usually what happens before the examination, that does not come under learning. Now definition by Murphy in 1968, the term learning covers every modification in behavior to meet environmental requirements. Another by Woodworth in 1945, he defined learning as, any activity can be called learning so far as it develops the individual in any respect, good or bad, and makes him alter behavior and experiences different from what they would otherwise have been. So this is the definition by Woodworth. Now these are 4 important scholarly definitions that are given for the term learning, which we all can remember from here, okay? Characteristics of learning. Now before I start this, I also want to tell one more point, that we can define learning as, in simple terms that I had explained in the previous slide, or we can even define learning in our own words, okay? But it'll be better if we can remember at least one of this definition and write these as the definition for learning. Now characteristics of learning. Learning is a process and not a product. So let's not confuse learning as a final product. Rather, it is a sustainable process. So, learning is a fundamental and lifelong process. Attitudes, fears, gestures, motor skills, language skills, etc. are the products of learning. Now, these are what comes to us or what we develop after we learn something. Now, this is not learning, but these are the products of learning. And they are not learning themselves. Yes, it is something that a child does in order to understand the real world and uses it as a tool for survival. So first of all, the main characteristic of learning is that we should not confuse it to be a product. Rather, it's a process. And let's not confuse these to be learning. Attitudes, fear, gestures, okay, language skills, motor skills, these are products of learning and not learning. Next we have learning is purposive or goal directed. Learning is not an aimless activity that happens in random. Okay, so let's read this. Learning is not an aimless activity. All true learning is based on purpose. We do not learn anything and everything that comes in our way in a haphazard manner. The third characteristics of learning is learning generally involves some degree of performance. Exactly what I told a few minutes back. Activities bringing temporary change in behavior and not lasting do not come under learning. This is very important to understand. For example, cramming the content matter by a learner for examination and forgetting it after some time does not bring any change in the total behavior pattern of the learner, and thus this type of learning cannot be said as true learning. So let's not confuse mugging or short-term remembering of answers as learning. Okay, so learning is something that carries with itself certain degree of permanence. Next we have learning is universal and continuous. Every creature till it lives learns. Nobody ever finishes the process of learning is basically what this point is all about. In human beings, it is not restricted to any particular age or gender or race or culture. It is universal. It is open to all. Okay, anybody and everybody can learn, and nobody is going to ever finish the process of learning. It is continuous. It is a continuous, never-ending process which starts from birth and continues till death. Okay. Learning prepares for adjustment. So this is the other characteristics. Learning helps the individuals to adjust herself or himself adequately and adapt to the changes that may be necessary to the new situations. We meet with new situations which demand solutions. Repeated efforts are required, react to them. Okay, repeated efforts are required to react to them. Okay, here 2 is missing, so let me write it here. Are required to react to them effectively. These experiences leave behind some effects in the mental structure and modify our behavior. So learning prepares us to adjust to new environment, new conditions, and new situations. Next we have learning is organizing experience. Learning involves all those experience and training of an individual right from birth which help him or her to produce changes in behavior. It is not mere addition of knowledge or mere acquisition of facts. So it is not just collection of data and facts. Okay, it is reorganization of experience which may also include unlearning. So this is the other characteristic of learning. And the last one for now is instincts and reflexes, okay, are not learning. So one more thing we should not confuse learning with are instincts and reflexes. Now, changes in behavior on the basis of native response tendencies like instincts and reflexes. Example, infants sucking behavior, okay, and blinking at bright lights. Okay, these are not learning. Rather, these are our instincts and these are our reflexes which do not come under learning. So these are the characteristics of learning that we studied. So today we'll be ending our video here, and from the next video we'll be covering the next subtopic in learning section, and that is how we'll be covering the entire subject. So the videos will be in short duration just like this one, so that it'll be easier for you all to revise a specific topic later. So thank you, and I will be uploading the next video soon, which will be on the next subtopic in learning part of the subject learning and teaching.